We'll begin the hearing LB344. Senator Friesen, you may go ahead and open.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Geis. Members of the committee, my name is Kurt Friesen, C-U-R-T-F-R-I-E-S-E-N. I represent District 34. Today I'm bringing LB344 before this committee to continue the work that we have begun on Nebraska's one-call system with LB462, which this committee prioritized and which the legislature passed in 2019. Our one-call system has two goals. The first goal is to ensure the safety of Nebraska contractors and citizens who work around the underground utilities. The second goal is to protect Nebraska's underground utility infrastructure from damage. To make sure we're meeting both of those goals as best we can, we need to be efficient and effective enforcement of the system for violations. And right now, for violations of the One Call Act, a complaint is filed with the Attorney General. And the Attorney General's staff handles every complaint from the time it is filed until it is either settled or prosecuted in court. I understand that this process can take sometimes anywhere from 18 months to 2 years to conclude, and sometimes even more. Oftentimes, excavators and underground utility operators won't even file a claim because they know how long they generally take to get resolved. So this leads to many smaller claims never being recovered, and the responsible parties are never held accountable. And that is the issue I'm trying to fix with LB344. I think the one-call complaints need to be resolved much sooner. If there is an excavator, a locator, or a utility owner out there that doesn't understand how to comply with one call, or doesn't feel they have to comply with the one call, that behavior needs to be corrected much faster than a 2-year time frame. It's a basic safety issue in my mind. I want to say that in bringing LB344, I'm not criticizing the work of the Attorney General or his staff. They are doing what they can with the resources they have. LB344 is intended to bring some help to the Attorney General's office so that they can focus on their efforts on the most serious violations. Under LB344, that help for the Attorney General comes in the form of an Underground Excavation Safety Committee, consisting of 2 excavator representatives, 2 utility operator representatives, and the State Fire Marshal. I have an amendment that would add 2 representatives of locators as well. This committee would review all one-call complaints that are filed. They would conduct administrative hearings, which would provide both sides of an issue, the complaining party and the alleged violator, an opportunity to provide information on the alleged violation. The committee would then produce findings of whether a violation occurred, and if so, what the penalty for that violation should be. The committee determines that if the committee determines that a serious violation occurred, and that's a civil fine is the right penalty, then the matter would be referred to the Attorney General's office for further handling. In this sense, the committee would act as a filter for the Attorney General's office. First-time or minor violations would, I believe, be resolved with a penalty in the form of continuing education requirements that the Attorney General wouldn't need to be involved with. Again, the goal of this would be to speed up enforcement, free up the Attorney General's office to focus on the most serious matters. With that, I'm looking forward to testimony on this bill, and if there would be concerns, I'd be happy to see if we can correct some of those things. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Yes, Senator.
When you're talking about violations of the one-call system, violations in not marking your utilities, or there not being utilities where you marked, or people digging without doing one call?
All of the above. We have mismarks. We have cases where they're not marked. We have excavators that dig without notifying. There's just lots of things. There's companies we've heard from in the past that even though the facilities were marked, they just went right on through and cut the current facilities and then turned around and fixed them. It's been a whole host of different issues.
Is it improper to try to repair something that you strike if it's somebody else's line?
Yes, it is not your duty to fix that, especially if you're hitting a gas line or a fiber
Well, I
line.
wouldn't fix the gas
I
line.
mean, there are issues there where, but in the past, they've just, companies have hit those lines and not reimbursed the facility owner for the damage because they're small amounts. If you hit a underground sprinkler line or a cable line running into a house, I mean, you're not gonna turn that into the Attorney General's office. And generally, you don't even report those because they know that nothing's gonna happen. Now, if you hit an 8-inch high-pressure gas line, it'll end up at the Attorney General's office. I mean, obviously, the damage is much greater. So this is for all those small hits that have happened or mismarks or everything else where everyone has been just negligent in even wanting to turn them in because the Attorney General's office won't look at them. They're
So
just
this
too small.
commission's gonna go out and investigate these?
What's that?
This commission would go out and investigate?
Only if they were turned in and then both parties would come and present their case to this board. So if they would meet quarterly, for instance, all those that have filed, a complaint would come before this committee. And then this committee would sort through those from the minor ones where maybe you didn't train your locator properly. They would recommend or say that you need to have more training for your locators. And if it was a more serious where they actually felt you needed a civil penalty, then they would recommend that with a unanimous vote of the board to send it on to the Attorney General's office for prosecution.
How would you handle when they use contractors to locate? Because I know in some cases, utilities will hire a contractor that they have employees who only do tracing.
Right.
So would you go after the contractor or the utility or?
Whoever's at fault, and that's where I believe the commission or the safety committee or that one-call board or that excavation would look at that. And some of these guys behind me can describe that process better, but that was the idea behind this in these minor hits or close calls where you turn someone in or file a complaint with whether it's a third-party marking company that they don't do a good job of marking their lines. This gives them a place to file a complaint and for this committee to do something.
How serious of a problem would they handle? I mean, if you mismark the gas line fills a building full of gas, it blows up, kills people. Would this tribunal do that, or would that be better tried in court?
Well, if a complaint was filed, I assume that this group would handle that. And if it was a serious violation of someone, they would turn it over to the Attorney General's office for civil fines. The Attorney General's office currently handles all complaints. And so the minor ones are the ones that get dropped. They just don't do anything with them. So the big ones, the Attorney General's office deals with regardless.
A lot of minor ones people just fix.
Right.
Because it's just cheaper to fix it than it is to argue about whose fault it was and what happened. My neighbor was putting a mailbox in and there was this yellow line right along the edge of the curb and he hit it with the tile spade and then it started hissing. And I said, get out of there, don't stand there. He's looking around down there digging in the dirt and there's this noise coming. He hit the gas line.
And he didn't call 911 or 811.
He didn't call the one-call system, no, but the gas company came out and they put some kind of a tourniquet over it and patched it. And I doubt they turned him in, I don't know.
Well, see, that would be a violation of the One-Call Act, and they could have if they'd wanted to.
Yeah, you hit some of those fiber optic cables, those can be really expensive to terminate. Sometimes you have to dig some kind of a vault or something to terminate them or pull a new line in, because you can't just patch them in the middle of the yard.
Thank you, Senator Mosier. Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Albright.
Thank you, Vice Chair Geist. Thank you for bringing this bill, Senator Friesen, and I'd like to ask just a couple quick questions. If this committee is only going to meet, say, quarterly, how many actual claims would you say would they have in a year's time? Lots.
I really don't know, because right now, a lot of claims are not even filed because they know the Attorney General's office won't do anything. And maybe one of these guys back here,
Okay.
There's some excavators, I think, back here that could answer that.
Because I'm kind of concerned, are they just going to be mediators and say, well, we'll just give you a pass, or 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out, you owe, I mean, how would they?
The way we envision it, this group would, it would be more of, if it's a minor violation, you're not a habitual bad actor, they might just recommend that you take your locators, if it's bad locations, for instance, just more training for your locators. Teach them how to do it better, more training. And the only way that you would probably rise to the level of sending it on to the Attorney General's office would be as if it was a high dollar thing. And so some of these hits that have happened in the past, they could be a $5,000 fix. And so the Attorney General's office obviously gets involved in those, but that sometimes takes 2 years before you're gonna get your money. And what I envision from this group here is that once this system has been in place for probably a year, everyone's gonna know how this all works, and they're gonna stop doing some of these bad things. They're gonna know what this committee is gonna do, how they're gonna handle it, and they're not gonna wanna go there. And so they'll fix what they're doing wrong because they don't wanna go in front of this board. And so I think the number of near misses and missed markings and all that is gonna decrease.
And so would you say this bill came to you because the Attorney General said, hey, I don't really want to be dealing with this? Or was it the one-call people that came in? Or how did this?
Probably more the excavators and some of the facility owners where it takes so long for something to happen.
To get
So
done.
if we filter some of this away from the Attorney General's office, I think some of those bigger complaints will be will be resolved quicker.
I mean, a lot of these jobs, which I see because we have some excavators in the family, that you need to have that fixed like the next day. You need to be after it. I
They do
can't
get it.
imagine waiting
They
quarterly.
do get it fixed. It's who is responsible and who pays the claim. And if you're a facility owner and if you don't want to turn this in, you're just going to pay for fixing it. But if you could go to this, what we call a hit court or whatever you want to call it, they might assign some blame there. And again, if it rises to the level of should be a civil penalty of some sort, the Attorney General's office will handle it just the way they do now.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from the committee? I do have one, Senator, and I might need to address it to someone behind you, and they may or may not know, but is there any way to determine, for the claims that are turned in, about how much annually is spent on these types of issues? What kind of dollar amount we're talking that this takes annually?
I think, I recall when we had some hearings in the past, when Allo was working in Lincoln here, there were lots of hits. And none of those were really turned in, I don't believe. Everybody just kind of paid their own fix and walked away because there are just numerous small hits, water lines, things like that.
Okay.
And so I don't really have that answer. The one-call board might have some of that information that we could get for you, or some of the excavators or facility owners might be able to answer that too.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Oh, yes,
Real
Senator
quick
Mosher.
question. Is this your idea, or did somebody bring this to you, or?
This is just something that we've been working on with the one-call board for a long time, trying to come up. We've had different ideas in the past, and we've just been refining it. Other states follow some similar procedure as this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Friesen. Those who are proponents may testify at this time. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, Joni. Senator Albright.
That's all
She's
right.
my senator, so.
That's right.
Senator Friesen and fellow members of the Nebraska Legislative Transportation and Telecommunication Committee. My name is BJ Whaler, W-O-E-H-L-E-R. I am the co-owner of Robert Whaler & Sons Construction, Inc. in Wayne, Nebraska, and vice president of the National Utility Contractors Association of Nebraska, NUCA of Nebraska. I am testifying on behalf of NUCA of Nebraska's memberships in support of LB344. We want to thank Senator Friesen for his leadership and work on this legislation. NUCA of Nebraska members use the one-call system every day. Our members build Nebraska's sewers, water mains, highways, bridges, and electrical systems for you and your constituents across the states, and hopefully more broadband. Our top priority is public safety. We know how important and critical it is for all stakeholders to use the one-call system to comply with the law. Our state relies on the Attorney General's office to receive and investigate complaints about one-call locates, requests that result in no responses, mismarked, no markings at all, and utilities that are hit or damaged as a result. NUCA of Nebraska members have often waited up to 2 years for the Attorney General office to complete investigations and issues a warning letter or monetary penalty after submitting a complaint. NUCA of Nebraska members have experienced issues hitting gas, electrical, cable, internet, and fiber optic lines. As you can imagine, it puts our members, employees at risk, along with anyone in the job site area, and disrupts services and businesses and residents in the area. LB344 would create a streamlined, industry-proven driven process that would reduce complaint resolution timelines and increase safety for all Nebraska. It focuses on enforcement and compliance through education and training and not monetary penalties. NUCA of Nebraska supports establishing an underground excavation committee to meet and gather information from stakeholders involved in a potential one-call violation impacting underground excavation safety laws. The structure of the committee supports balanced representation from excavators and facility operators. These are steps in the right direction towards better and more efficient enforcement of the One Call Act and promotes accountability by all stakeholders. We also support the requirement for the Attorney General to support a quarterly report to the state to the status of each active violated filed. This would also help support accountability. A similar one-call model is in place in Colorado and has helped improve enforcement. We respectively ask your support and vote in favor of LB 344 to protect our citizens and support continued building and enhancement of infrastructure, which leads to economic and job growth. That's the written testimony, and again, the main concept of this is safety with speed and efficiency to improve enforcements. What I've seen is it takes too long and the bad actors are getting away, and we need to concentrate on filtering through all the complaints, and a lot of them can be dealt with education, but there are some bad actors out there that need to get dealt with a lot sooner than 18 months. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Are there some questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Bostelman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Geist. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'd like you to explain a little bit more about how you see this body, how do you think it will function, especially when we look at part of it is as a deal with the Attorney General's office and how that relationship is and how that's not how that would work, I guess, from both as the contractor then walking through the entire process.
Okay, first of all, we don't want to give up the Attorney General office because that's kind of the big hammer that's on the back end. And the CGA actually recommends that that's the Common Ground Alliance that oversees or recommends rules and regs for everybody. They recommend we keep the Attorney General as the final enforcement, but it's also the biggest hammer and they're overloaded. And it's tough for them. I've talked to Melissa's here, she'll probably testify later. She designates what she's told me about 10% of her time, which unfortunately has not been able to keep up with the load, and a lot of people aren't doing the even filing complaints anymore. So the way I see this is it'd kind of be the filtering process, or I call it the front porch, where we could all kind of sit down and look at it, and if there's enough evidence and it's egregious enough, it'd move on to her or to the Attorney General's office. If it's something that needs education or something that needs solved, it could be done there, dealt with, and moved on. That way they're dealt with faster.
Yeah, I guess my question would be if we have a bad actor, it's a repetitive bad actor, how this is really gonna resolve that.
In two ways, I see. Number one, it'll help identify them because they'll be coming in with complaints to them more often than not. And secondly, by this committee identifying them as a bad actor and with the Attorney General having less of the filtering process, give them a quicker response to it. That's how I see it working.
Sure, so, so I have a bill that will be coming up later in here, and it really talks about on the pre-bid process, that utilities are identified so that when you bid, you're aware of what it is, what's there. But I guess where I'm going with this is that it seems to me that if things are not being marked appropriately, would it not be quicker to fine or have a process to fine those bad actors, those who are not marking? If a utility itself, say it's company X has their own utility and they have their own personnel trained and they mark and they're fine, but we have company Y that hires a subcontractor to come out and mark and we know they're bad, would it not benefit us more to look at finding those individuals? And do you see this as a process to potentially go through to do that?
One option we looked at was giving the state fire marshal the ability to actually issue fines, like speeding tickets. That I got a lot of pushback when I talked to different members about that. They don't like to give that authority to that. So this is kind of the middle ground, because there's also a hit court out in Maryland and DC area, which is very strict. It runs its own self. And so this is kind of that middle zone. And your bill, I'm very interested to see how far it goes, because I hope it, I mean, that's my dream, right? Is I show up on a job and I have no utility conflicts. I dealt with that all summer. That's all I deal with pretty much. My brothers are out digging and I'm out trying to figure out how we can work around this stuff and how to get those utilities to show up and move their stuff. I sat down in Telecommunications, Nebraska for 2 years waiting for a line to be moved. I lost over $100,000 because somebody could not mark their line because they were using a private third-party locator, so they didn't even have access to the building to get in to locate the fiber. We dug it all up for them. We still had to wait for them to show up and move it. Took forever. Then, one day I show up, and here's the state fire marshal on my job site. And I know him, so I went up and talked to him. He goes, well, there was a gas hit here yesterday. I said, what? You know, what do you mean? It was a third party working for a telecom, moving the telecom, hit a gas line, which wasn't marked. My guys actually dug through it 2 weeks earlier, no marks. How we didn't hit it, I still haven't figured out. Luck of God, I guess, because we were 6 foot in the ground putting in water main. Luckily, they must have bored under it, because it was a ditch. If you know Telecommunications, there isn't a flat piece of ground there except for we were in the non-flat part. There's flat part and there's non-flat part. We were in the non-flat part, which I could barely even set a trailer. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little lengthy, but moral of the story there is that was a bad contractor that the fire marshal had run out of Lincoln. They were then up there doing that, working under somebody else's locate ticket number. That's who I want caught. Those are the guys I want out of the state. They're bad contractors, whether or not they work for a utility or they work for themselves, whatever. But those are the ones I want caught. But when it takes that much time, they were out of Texas. They're gone. They're not, we're not going to be able to catch them. So that needs to be quicker.
Okay,
So that's where I'm hoping to get.
Thank you.
Senator Albright?
Thank you. Thanks for being here, BJ. Had I known you were following Senator Friesen, I probably wouldn't have asked him so many questions. So I know how much dedication he's put into the 811 and the one call. So, and the amount of work that y'all do up in my district. And I just thank you for being here today and offering up your testimony. Thanks.
Any addition? Yes, Senator Mosher.
So you represent contractors who install utilities?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, private. We do water mains, sewer mains, storm sewer, gas, electric. We're national utility contractors. Even municipalities can be members, but primarily in Nebraska, we're private contractors.
And in your experience, the biggest problem is mismarked utilities?
It's like Senator Friesen said, it's the gamut. I mean, this board will see everything. It will see mismarks, locates not done in a timely manner. They have up to 72 hours now to respond. And there are contractors that we unfortunately hit stuff.
Well, correct me, well, just, I would say not correct me. Currently, if you mark it wrong, then it's the fault of whoever marked it if you hit it. And if you mark it where it is and the contractor hits it, it's on the contractor, right?
Yes.
And they have 18 inches or so of slippage depending on the depth that they're going.
18 inches plus half the distance of the utility. So if it's a 12-inch water main, you got 6 inches plus 18 inches. So you can imagine a 72-inch culvert, storm sewer gets really large, where a pea-size telephone line,
Not going to give you much more.
you get
room.
18 inches on both sides, which is still 36 inches. And just to comment on the depth earlier, I've tried to get depth several times, but the locating equipment is not accurate enough. And unfortunately, you got to start digging at zero and start looking for that line. But the key is to have that line and have it as accurate as you can. What we're finding right now is guys are not getting the locates on time. That's the biggest problem we're having right now. So we're
So
holding up
what would
troops.
you do for somebody that doesn't show up in time?
Hopefully this committee, if it starts seeing enough of those, like Senator Friesen said, that they'll start to realize we don't want to be called in front of this committee all the time, and they will come up with a better solution, more staff, better ways to get those locates done on time. We understand locates are difficult, they're not always going to be accurate, but when there's no paint on the ground, and we get now we're getting a yield and a stop sign through the system to tell us to stop and not dig, that puts crews on hold and costs us and taxpayers and everybody money, because most of us are on big jobs that need to get done, and we're on timelines. A lot of my members work for the Department of Roads. That can be or transportation. That can be an issue. So
So if you dig though and they haven't been marked, are you liable? Or is the utility or the marking company liable?
as long as I've waited my
72
72 hours, and then I need to give them another notice, which is 2 hours, I believe, I'm not going to say it because I'm also on the Nebraska 811 board. Thanks to this body I got put on, you guys put some contractors on it. The law is gray at that point. I personally will not dig because it says you need to have due diligence that there's nothing there. If I don't see any lines and nobody's notified me, I start making phone calls. And that's the way I work. Up in Northeast Nebraska, luckily I know most of the guys. When I have a beginning of a job and I get it, we have a planning meeting and I get as many phone numbers as I can for the local locators. That's the way to go. But unfortunately, some guys are under very tight time frames and they go and dig. I don't want to ever put myself in that situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to take that
No,
risk.
because it's risky. I mean, gas, electric, and even some of the fibers, the cost and the life and the safety, it's just not worth it. But
Yeah, I'm from Columbus and I worked for the city of Columbus for 12 years. We had a situation where we had a mismarked line in a subdivision where it had gone broke and the records were poor, and the city supposedly, the guys who worked for me, marked it, but then the utility contractor had hit a manhole and broken the top off the manhole, hit it with a payloader, and then subsequently dug into a water main, and the water gushed up, ran over into the manhole, and did several $100,000 worth of damage to several houses. And it went to court, obviously, and the city, I think, wound up paying in this particular case. But it was after that they bought one of those jetter vac things,
suckbacks.
so you can shoot a stream of water down there like a huge garden hose and then suck it out of there, and then you can actually look down in the hole and see if you can see what you're looking for.
Yeah, those have really changed and helped the industry.
Yeah, I think that was pretty cool. I mean, it cost us 150,000, but I think that one loss, I think, was several hundred thousand, just that one.
And what you're talking about is what we refer to as civil damages, and those are the cost outside of this. This board would only deal with the one-call law and the fines associated with that. It would not award me or the utility operator damages for the actual hit or mismark or anything like that. This will only deal with the 811 law and the fines associated with that.
So maybe this is too, if it's currently being litigated, I better be careful how I describe it. So a utility marks a utility, somebody comes along, they're doing underground boring and they hit it, and then people die. Your board would not assess fault in a case like that?
Only if they violated the law. That's what we want. With what the Attorney General and what the one-call law does, it would only deal with the one-call law. Was the line marked? Was it mismarked? Was it marked timely? You know, there's the whole statutes of what this would deal with and what currently the Attorney General would like. Now, a lot of my members would like to see a board that would deal with that, and I can see the purpose of that, but I think we have the civil court cases and the whole thing set up for that, so why don't we just leave that in that realm?
Yes, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, Mr.
Thank you.
Wortham.